Obscure City is a place where you can find many unique dangers. This is where she works, Cassandra Killjoy, paranormal private eye. Now a teenage girl's father has gone missing, and Killjoy believes that the city's enigmatic protector, the swordsman, is the key to finding him. So Killjoy must face many deadly dangers in her search for the swordsman. Available on Amazon.com.
Did you know that Universal Studios had an entire Marvel-style cinematic universe plan centered around the classic Universal movie monsters? Unfortunately, that franchise was just not meant to be, and it has faded away into nothing more than one of the legends of fandom. Greetings fanboys and fangirls, I'm Erod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster. Happy Halloween and welcome to Legends of Fandom, where we talk about the fanboy films and shows that almost happened. Today, our story begins during the golden age of cinema, in 1931. After the massive success of Dracula and Frankenstein, Universal went all in on monster movies, producing such classics as The Wolfman, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Mummy, and The Bride of Frankenstein, just to name a few. And eventually, this led to the Monster Mash movies, where these legendary horror icons would cross over. Yes, technically speaking, Universal had a cinematic universe long before Marvel and Disney. This was the original MCU, the Monster Cinematic Universe. Fast forward to the late 2000s, Iron Man was a huge hit, and Marvel was very open about their plans for an interconnected series of movies that would culminate with a massive crossover film, The Avengers. Everyone knew that that movie was going to be huge, so all the big studios started to gear up and try to produce a franchise that could compete with it. Warner Brothers famously put a Justice League movie directed by George Miller into production. That sadly didn't happen. Meanwhile, Universal Studios' plan to compete with Marvel Studios was far more ambitious. They were going to start their own cinematic universe, centered around their classic horror franchises from the 30s and 40s. And they were going to kick this off with the massively underrated and underappreciated Wolfman reboot from 2010. Personally, I love this movie. Benicio del Toro's performance as Larry Talbot is superb, and Rick Baker's Wolfman makeup is arguably the best ever crafted. Sadly, the movie would go on to underperform, and for a while it seemed like Universal had abandoned their plans for a monster-themed cinematic universe. Until 2014, when they were apparently officially going to start the Monster Cinematic Universe with Dracula Untold, starring Luke Evans as the titular vampire. But that movie was just bad. It was panned by critics, ignored by audiences, and you knew that Universal was aware of its horridness as they gave it a limited release. Dracula Untold had a short theatrical run, and then it was quietly released to home media, where it faded away into obscurity. And for a while, it really did feel like that was the end of the Monster Cinematic Universe. Until 2017, when they announced that they were officially starting the Monster Cinematic Universe with a reboot of The Mummy. But what makes this attempt different from the first two is that this is when Universal really got aggressive about starting a cinematic universe. This is when they started calling it the Dark Universe, and even made a logo. They openly announced the entire release schedule for these movies, and they even released a now infamous picture of the actors who were supposed to play the iconic monsters, some of which weren't even under contract yet. And then, of course, the picture was famously exposed as a false image created via Photoshop. Yup, this big multi-million-dollar franchise couldn't even get their stars together to take one picture. Had this franchise happened, according to this fake picture, it would have featured Sofia Boutella as the Mummy, Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man, Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster, Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Tom Cruise as Tom Cruise, I guess. And now for the most important question of the video. What would the Dark Universe be like? Well, thanks to Universal's extreme cockiness, we have a really good idea. As I previously explained, the franchise would have kicked off with Tom Cruise's Mummy, where we would see his character, whose name I don't care to learn, joining the Prodigium, a secret society dedicated to hunting supernatural threats after an epic encounter with Sofia Boutella's mummy. The Prodigium would be led by Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll, who was the Nick Fury of the franchise, while his alter ego, Mr. Hyde, would have been the franchise's equivalent of Loki. Each movie would have featured this wacky team of paranormal investigators either battling or recruiting one of the classic Universal monsters. The lineup of movies would have included the following: a reboot of Van Helsing, starring everyone's favorite dancing pretty boy, Channing Tatum. Fun fact, Tom Cruise was supposed to star in this one, but dropped out to play whomever the heck he played in The Mummy. Dracula Untold, Part 2. Luke Evans was due to return as the Prince of Darkness and clash with the Dark Universe version of Van Helsing. Whether he was actually going to join the Prodigium or be the Thanos of the franchise is unknown. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In the Dark Universe, Dr. Jekyll keeps his evil alter ego at bay via quarterly injections of a mysterious serum. In this movie, the nefarious Mr. Hyde somehow gets free and goes on an epic earth-threatening rampage that Dr. Jekyll and the rest of the agents of the Prodigium must stop. Would the well-intended doctor find a way to quell his dark half? The world may never know. The Invisible Man. This movie did pick up a great deal of steam as Johnny Depp was legitimately interested in starring, with Ed Solomon penning the script. But unfortunately, neither of them ever got around to signing a contract. However, because so much money went into pre-visualization and pre-production, Universal decided to salvage the project and rework it into the 2020 standalone Invisible Man remake, starring the great Elizabeth Moss, which is a great movie and I highly recommend it unless you are sensitive to portrayals of abusive relationships. If so, you might want to avoid it, as that particular aspect of the movie has been known to trigger some people. The Wolfman, starring, I kid you not, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Because The Wolfman is considered to be part of the holy trinity of monsters, along with Dracula and Frankenstein, it was one of the films that Universal was going to give top priority to, and wanted to set up as a tentpole movie that could potentially have sequels of its own. Hence the reason they tapped their old buddy the Scorpion King to be the star, as he is a popular box office draw. Whether or not he would have been the hero or the villain of the franchise is unknown, but knowing The Rock, even if the Wolfman was intended to be the villain, he probably would still forcefully portray him as a misunderstood anti-hero. The Creature from the Black Lagoon, with Will Bell writing the script and Scarlett Johansson starring as the extremely sexy marine biologist that would be pursued by the creature. Many big directors were pursued to helm this one, including John Carpenter, Peter Jackson, Ivan Reitman, and Guillermo del Toro, who wanted to do the movie from the creature's point of view. And he was so enamored with the idea that even after the project was scrapped, he reshaped it into the shape of water. And we all know how that turned out. The Bride of Frankenstein, starring Angelina Jolie. This is the one that was supposed to be the next movie right after The Mummy, and it actually got pretty deep into pre-production. Shooting dates were almost scheduled, the script was written by David Coe, Bill Condon was set to direct, and the film was scheduled to be released on Valentine's Day 2019. The story would begin in the 1870s, with Angelina Jolie as the bride having a very adversarial relationship with Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster. Then the story would transition to the bride being reawakened in present day, where her feud with her would-be husband would continue, and would lead to her joining the Prodigium. However, production was delayed in October 2017 due to issues launching the Dark Universe, and Angelina Jolie's window of availability started to close, so talks began to replace her with Gal Gadot, but then the project was dropped altogether. And now for the second most important question of this video. Why didn't the Dark Universe happen? Well, the answer is actually quite simple, because the Tom Cruise Mummy bombed. The question is, why did it bomb? Well, a big part of it had to do with the fact that they had already successfully rebooted The Mummy in the 90s. It's just mind-blowing to me that Universal already had a massively successful monster reboot with sequels, spin-offs, a cartoon, toys, and a theme park ride that they could have easily built the Dark Universe on, but said, nope, we're doing another reboot instead. This, of course, created brand confusion with audiences. Folks saw the trailer, they didn't see any of the characters from the original movies, and immediately dismissed it. No Brendan Fraser, no Arnold Vosloo, and no sight of the most beautiful and sexiest actor from the franchise, Odette Fur. Furthermore, to launch a franchise, you need an extraordinary film, and Tom Cruise's Mummy was fair at best. While the action is pretty good, it was very difficult to connect with the characters, especially since the titular character is not even the main character. That would be whomever the hell Tom Cruise was playing. In fact, the whole thing plays like a Mission Impossible movie with a mummy in it. But still, Universal was stubbornly committed to the Dark Universe, pushing mummy merchandise, references to the upcoming Dark Universe movies, and even teasing a potential Mummy sequel. But alas, even the cruise missile is not impervious to bad reviews and low box office. So finally, Universal scrapped the Dark Universe. Personally, I feel that the big flaw here is that they were forcefully trying to turn classic horror into superhero movies. And time again, have we seen these characters work better if you either stick to their true nature or if you tell a story that actually focuses on them. The good news is that these characters are timeless icons and it's only a matter of time before we see them again. But what do you think? Are you happy that the Dark Universe died before it even started? Or do you still crave a cinematic universe starring the classic monsters? Let me know in the comment section below, as we have once again reached the end of this video. So, do you know any fanboy films or shows that almost happened? Let me know at erod@inbox.com. And who knows, your suggestion might just end up being the subject of the next Legends of Fandom. Until then, I'm Erod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster.